Hi everybody, welcome to those of you who've been hanging with me some time, and welcome to those of you who are new to my channel. I'm Adele Levine, intuitive and medium. All right guys, first off, new mug. Do you recognize Daria? Yeah, this little throwback from Go Away. So those of you who may not remember, Daria was kind of the sarcastic symbol of our Generation X. Yes, Generation X. Which means we were pretty much X'd out, like people have forgotten about us. No, we are not boomers, we are the X generation. We were kind of a cool generation if you think about it. And Daria is definitely kind of a, I don't know, I would say a symbol of a lot of how people were in that time and even in that time today. So sarcasm, it would be our motto as the Gen Xers. Probably would agree. So let me know in the comments. Do you agree, Gen Xers? Are we the sarcastic generation? We had a lot to be sarcastic for. Believe it or not, I do have a segue into this video, and it is the idea of really kind of looking and finding yourself. I kind of noticed up in the air, you know, through readings and kind of seeing what's going on, it seems to be a reoccurring theme of people kind of looking and going, you know, who am I? What's my calling? What's my passion? How does that tie into the Gen X generation? Well, I would say that when you reach a certain age, you do kind of start to look at yourself and go, you know, where did all that time go? No, that's not what I say, because I'm not coming from an old person's perspective. Does it look like I am? It's not so much that we're looking for, you know, where all the time went and everything. It's more the idea that our generation was definitely literally X'd out. We were given the name Gen X. We were actually a pretty cool generation, and we weren't really taught to do you, meaning it wasn't cultivated to us to be okay with ourselves, to look inside of ourselves, see who we are, and want to bring that forward and be proud of that and be comfortable with that. That wasn't really a thing in our growing up years. So like, we are evolving and we're moving towards more of a time where we're seeing that raising children and raising them to understand who they are inside and be comfortable with themselves, and really helping children cultivate who they are as they grow. This is a new concept, guys. Believe me, and we are not the boomers, for God's sake. Sorry, boomers. No bad on the boomers, but you know, it was like that rivalry thing that probably goes on between all generations, like the Xers and millennials, and now the millennials and the Z generation. Is just the way it goes. But we kind of feel a little, you know, jilted because we were forgotten about and people just kind of jump over us still. But we're getting a little bit of attention these days. But what came with this generation and learning to be sarcastic, which Daria was definitely a symbol of our generation of being sarcastic. It was definitely a way of learning to live with difficulty, pain, and even just growing a thick skin, which in a lot of ways is awesome and great, but in a lot of ways is kind of terrible that that's something that you have to do. And being allowed to be who you are and being allowed for you to grow and kind of go, this is me, I know who I am, and I want to be this person, wasn't something we grew up with. And I've noticed there's a lot of people, and not just in my generation, but actually in all the generations, are going, hey, I want to start looking at myself. Who am I? You know, what is my passion? How do I find myself? The idea of a lost, you know, soul looking for where they fit, so to speak, or who are they really, is something that's been happening a lot. And I definitely feel the pandemic has been part of why people have been asking this question. We've all been locked away for so long, not really being out in the world so much, and having so much alone time, and having like a little bubble around us, that now that we're kind of branching out and things are kind of lifting slowly, people are moving more into planning what is going to happen next. People are questioning, who am I? What do I really want to be doing? And I feel like I just want to give you a little bit of tips on how to do that. Not tips like tips and tricks, but I want to give you a little insight on how you can do that in a way that is uniquely you. In other words, no, I'm not going to give you like follow A through Z. Matter of fact, throw that out. A through Z, making lists is just not a way to go about looking inside yourself. Remembering who you were around 5 through 10 years old. And also for those of you who are a little bit older, past the Z generation, meaning those of you who are past your 20s, if you look at when you were 20, that's when you actually look and stare down your path and go, which path am I going to go down? The reason why when people get older, they start to feel, and unfortunately, I apologize for my peers in my age group, and which we don't need to mention. Yeah, I think we all know. Okay. That, a lot of times the older generation isn't very welcoming and it doesn't help the next generation to, really find themselves. Matter of fact, what happens a lot, and we need to stop doing this, is the older generation will kind of almost push the younger generation almost down the same path they went. Like, well, I survived it. You can survive it. This kind of attitude. Oh, well, you made some mistakes. Oh, you're so happy now. Well, wait until, you get older. I know when I was just a mere little shy 21-year-old, I was working with people probably 10, 15, probably like 15 years older than me. And I noticed, and it was all women, there was a lot of bitterness towards me. I'm going to call it like it is. I can now, because now I am in a place where I can call out people, my peers, about this type of behavior. And they would say things like, oh, you're so in love and blah, blah, blah. Wait till you have children and you get a divorce. Well, this kind of things very like this way. I made a mental note of this and said, listen, Adela, whatever path you go down and whatever life brings you, because I have a feeling you're going to be living a very interesting one. Make sure you don't become bitter. Make sure your heart stays intact. And I actually did stick to this concept. No matter what I went through, all the losses I have, all the disappointments I've had, all the deaths I've had, I worked really hard to try to keep my heart open and to heal it, because it is a terrible thing to go down the path of closing and becoming hardened and then really wanting to rain on everyone else's parade. I just didn't want to go down this path. And the reason why I say this is because if you find yourself questioning, who am I? What direction do I want to go? You may also find that there is somebody along your path kind of crushed and stomped on your soul. Now, this can happen. Doesn't have to happen in your 20s. Doesn't happen to happen in your 30s. It can happen just even when you're a child. So look back when you're about 5 to 10 years old, and you'll find you really knew yourself. People tend to look, how can I find myself? What is my true passion? Who am I really inside? And they'll think of like things that are logical. Oh, I used to like flowers, but I couldn't go and do that because there's no living in that. So they just toss it. Or I love the outdoors, but there's really no money in that. So that's not anything real. And they toss it. And actually, passion and finding in your true self is finding something you love, something something that makes you feel good. It isn't necessarily something that just comes easy to you. What I mean by that, it isn't something necessarily that you're going, well, I love to bake. It really comes easy for me and I just do it. Maybe you do like it. Maybe it comes easy, but maybe it just isn't really a true passion. In other words, sometimes people dismiss things if it's like too easy, which a lot of the times that might be something that you really are passionate about, but you figure, oh, it's easy, but there's really no money in it, so who cares? And so people toss it. But people also toss things that they just love to do because it's not practical. Now, I'm not saying to kind of live your heads, put your head in the clouds and just ignore all practicalities. No, of course not. We do have to be practical. You have to make a living, you have to pay for things. But when you want to make a change and you want to shift your life into a different place, you kind of create a bridge from this one into the life you're trying to build, one step at a time, one little brick at a time. You don't look at it like, oh, I want to like completely change my life and I'm just going to jump from here to there. And so it starts with going inside yourself and going, okay, what did I love to do? Oh, I love to be outside. I'm just going to start being outside all the time. I'm just going to kind of do that and kind of let the juices flow through me of, I really feel this energy and it really reminds me of who I was. Now, for those of you, who are a little older, remember like 20 to me is actually when you start your path. When I look at the future, one thing I love about reading for younger people is that they have many possible paths. This is also the reason why a lot of people are very jealous of them, but they have many possible paths because every decision we make starts to create like a domino effect into possible futures. What I mean by that is that the way the future works is that every decision you make starts hitting the next domino, and starts the future into effect. So the more you do that, let's say you take a job, now you get married, now you have kids, and you bought a house, you set a lot of things into motion. Before you do all that, you're like kind of, okay, there's all these possible ways I can go. Now, as you get older, it's not that you can't shift your path and you can't find your true passion and who you are, but it's not the big fan that it was with all the possible paths because you've made decisions and you've already set things into motion. And that is why sometimes people feel like, oh, wow, now I'm stuck, or I can't really get out of move front or back or left or right. I can't really have no room, but that's not true because you can always shift your path and move into another direction. It just is a little different than when you have no responsibilities, no people counting on you, and it's just you at that age. And I'm not saying, some of you might have said, hey, Adela, I had kids by the time I was 20 and all that. Of course, I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that even if that was the case, you have it fresh in your mind what you really were into at that age. It is still fresh in your heart. So if you need to even look a little further back, I always believe that we beam down into this planet knowing who we are. So around 5 and 10, we really know ourselves and know who we are. So you can look back at that. But finding who you are, being comfortable in your own skin, making those changes starts with here. People give all kinds of self-help books and things and follow A through Z and do these steps and you're going to find yourself and you're going to change your life. That's really just not the way it works because we're so different. We're all uniquely different, like our thumbprints. So what works for one does not work for all. So you have to start with you. You have to start. People don't like to play enough. They don't like to have fun with it. If you feel like you're in this position where you're like, Adela, cat on cue, by the way, I feel like I am, going through this shift. I feel like something is changing me. I want to start moving towards more who I am. Leave in the comments below, because if you share that, other people understand, they kind of relate to it. They can kind of feel, I feel like it's important when people hear other people are feeling and are in this similar place. It makes us not feel so alone. And the last thing that I really want to say, well, the main point I really want to say is that looking for that part of yourself, being comfortable in your own skin, doesn't have to be so much hard work. It really should be fun. It should be exploration. It should be discovery, where you're like, oh, I tried this. I went into this outside concert because I used to love listening to music. What is happening with the cat? She's like chowing down. I used to like to go for walks. I used to like to paint, and you just kind of do a little bit of it. What people do is go, oh, I used to love that, so I'm going to buy all these easel and all this paint, and I'm just going to paint, all day. But then you kind of burn on it because you're expecting for a life-changing experience and you don't have it, and you burn out on it. So really making those changes and remembering who you are is just doing the little bits at a time, Oh, I did a little bit of painting. I went for a walk, maybe total of 20 minutes, and you just kind of get a taste of it. Then you do a little bit more and a little bit more, and you start remembering who you are. It is unfortunate, but we don't cultivate this. Women, this happens to us quite a bit, where you become mothers, you become wives, and you're being told to, like, this is your role now, and this is how you behave, and we create these boxes for people, and women feel like they can't really be this free spirited, because it's not appropriate and it's not okay. And for men, they get put in the box of like, just put your head down, do what you're told, and not allow your feelings to be shown. And so these boxes that we create have to disappear. And then we start to buy in the spiritual world. What I mean by in the universe, this is the opposite of how it is. It is the idea of seeing us, all of these beautiful, individual, colorful, beautiful plants that, plant ourselves and are supposed to feed with water and air and sun, and let it grow and large in many different sizes and shapes and forms. And each one is doing something different for the planet. Each one is providing a different beauty and a different aspect. And we're not supposed to fit in these boxes. So I hope that made sense, and I hope that helped. I also talked a little bit about this on my latest podcast about feminine and masculine energy, because there's a lot of misconceptions about it and what it is. And those are boxes as well on the Peering into the Narrow Room. You can check that out. I am doing a class that you guys asked for. I am doing a class on spirit communication for beginners. Now, I did ask you guys to vote on my Instagram. I don't know if you saw it here, but leave in the comments below or send a DM or something if you wanted me to do a seance this month or a medium gallery. I'm still offering the 50% off of all my readings with the code PEACE. And because I have been out in the world to see that people are still going through some difficult times. Follow yourself, follow no one, listen to your inner voice, and I'll see you soon.